Evening, everyone. I am Mike, and welcome to Let's Talk, your optimal health community time. We are so excited for you to have the opportunity to learn from such an amazing panel of people this evening. And tonight's topic is the secrets of fueling your body correctly. How awesome is that? And our host tonight is going to be Jared Smith, and he is somebody that had a big impact on Amy and I's life. We were brand new coaches and we ended up on an Optavia cruise, and we got to hear Jared do a little school by the pool, and he really impacted us in a powerful way. And he has always been someone that has lived a healthy lifestyle and really taken this into an optimal health level. So I am excited, Jared, for you to be able to share with everybody tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. That's been a while ago, that cruise. I just had that pop up in my Facebook memories and stuff. I'm like, man, that seemed like yesterday, but that was a while back.
2019.
Yeah. Well, appreciate the intro. I get to intro a couple amazing, powerful health practitioners. Rachel Richards, who I think if I'm not mistaken, Rachel, 15 years as a certified holistic nutrition coach. Been in practice there. And then good friend of mine, Megan Embring, who's a nurse practitioner on our own very team. So thank you for being with us tonight, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about creating a lifestyle. Mike talked about like fueling our bodies correctly. We're going to talk about a few different topics tonight. But a while back, I don't know if any of you are familiar with James Norbury. He's an illustrator, and he does this children's illustration of Big Panda and Tiny Dragon. And I remember a while back seeing this cartoon picture of his, and the dragon is on the panda's back, and the panda asks the dragon, which is more important, the journey or the destination? And the dragon said, it's neither, it's the company. So we just want to welcome you guys tonight. Optavia is incredible company. The company itself, but the company we keep is so integral to our long-term health and success. There's so much research out there about the company that we keep, the 5 closest people to us. We mimic their behaviors. So tonight we're going to talk about, we're just going to kind of like mix and mingle these things, but we're going to talk primarily about having a holistic mindset. We're obviously going to talk about healthy nutrition, the way that we fuel our bodies. And we're going to talk about specific exercise and the critical nature of muscle in our longevity. And of course, sleep is so critical. There's a while back, I listened to a medical panel talk about the 8 subcellular pathologies. And we're not going to go into details about these. Megan could probably give you like details about every single one. But those 8 subcellular pathologies are mitochondrial dysfunction, insulin resistance, inflammation, autophagy, oxidative stress, glycation, methylation, and membrane instability. 4 of those can be assisted or fixed by exercise. The other 4 cannot. So anybody who talks about like, oh yeah, you just got to exercise more, we can't outrun our fork. We're never going to be able to. So we have to, if we want the best quality life, we really need to adopt all of the habits of health. And this isn't done by tomorrow. This is the baby steps, the millimeters each day, and we're just getting a little bit better, 1% better. So what does my life look like, right? Rachel, Megan, what's your take on this brief little slide?
Megan, you start us off and then I'll pick up. Great. Well, I think, Jared, what you were just saying there, I was thinking too, that it is all about the lifestyle, because lifestyle as a whole can affect all of those 8 cellular issues that you mentioned there. But it's really developing this identity and choosing, like Dr. Anderson says in The Habits of Health, this fundamental choice of, do you want to be a healthy person? And what does that look like? And so I think that segues nicely into this slide is, um, it's making that choice to truly do the things in your life. Dr. Anderson would say, organize your life around what matters most to you. Is being healthy really important to you? And we should be organizing our life around those things. And so I think, when this slide says, what does my life look like? Most of us live out of habit, and we have routines in our lives, and those routines are either bringing us closer to a healthy state or closer to a disease state. And it really does matter how we spend our day and what our life looks like, what our schedule looks like. Would you agree with that, Rachel?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you think about what your life looks like, it's really just looking at that identity, our choices, and how do we get them closer together versus I want this outcome that's way over here. For some of us, we can think in terms of weight loss or what have you. And today I love our topics is much more centered around healthy gains, like gaining better sleep, gaining more muscle in our body composition so we can eat fat at rest. Like, what does that look like? And a lot of what we're talking about tonight are long-term wins that take short-term daily modifications of schedule. Really, we're just talking about time investment. And I loved talking earlier today to you, Jared, and having you really illustrate how most of the investment is not monetary. It's time. So kind of back to you on that one, because that was a really cool illustration today.
Yeah, when we were prepping, these are just a few things that I wrote down. Like, obviously, we're going to invest monetarily in food. We have to eat. You're going to buy it from a grocery store, from the convenience store, from a restaurant, wherever. You're investing. That's going to cost money. Here's some things that don't cost you any money. Sleep. Exercise. You don't have to pay for a gym membership. You can do it for free. Sunlight. Gratitude. Breath work. Mindfulness. Disciplining ourselves to take digital breaks, right? Getting away from technology sometimes, being out in nature, right? So I love your kind of intro into what does my life look like. Chris, if you want to hit the animation. Here's another question for you. If someone followed you around for a week, would they believe you're serious about your goals? Now, both Megan and Rachel talked about this identity piece. If people followed us around for a week, would their version of our identity be the same as our own? Thoughts, Rachel?
I'm thinking, one of the things that really hits there is it's not even a commitment until it's sacrificial, right? So a lot of times when we think, oh, I'm going to have this new miracle morning or this incredible twilight routine that I'm going to develop, right? And we can get caught in that perfection trap. But what's incredible in this community that I love, and you hit it on the head, it has to do with, in our community, you're going to see someone behind you, a few steps behind you in your journey, and you're going to see some people a few steps ahead of you. And so it's so nice to just know that I'm in good company here, with a good company here. And all I have to do is take the baby steps in those macro areas. Like, maybe I go to bed a half an hour early. I made a change in my sleep. Maybe I stop monitoring my weight loss on the scale and I can start tracking my protein instead. Like, what would that do over my lifespan, my health span, to say, instead of tracking my weight for the last 50 years or whatever it is for some of you, right? That three-headed monster. What would it be like to track that protein, fiber, and water, right? So I could just see a myriad of things that are small that we can implement in this community with our coach. And our coach has plenty of areas for us to make small, doable changes over time and get those compound returns.
Yeah, so good. Megan, do you have something to add?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said there because this is important where you said focusing on the scale for so many years, switching that focus. I'm a nurse practitioner in outpatient cardiology. So most of my patients are a little bit older. So I'm really used to working with that demographic. And it is hard to change those habits over time, but that's where the mindset comes in. And that really choosing what it is that we want and what's most important, and recognizing that we can shift our mindset and make changes in what we track and what we focus on at any age. And sometimes it's simply just focusing on gratitude. You know, I love what you said about focusing on the protein intake. When we were talking in preparation, focusing not on weight loss, but building muscle. That's such an important factor in aging, in healthy aging, and in this concept of after the after, really living this lifelong healthy lifestyle. So, yep, I agree with everything you guys said there. Mhm.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was just thinking, I've been coaching for 16 years. And my wife Amber and I, we've had thousands and thousands of clients. So I've had a lot of interesting conversations and I've seen just about everything. Every once in a while, I'll still get a little like, whoa, that's new, but not very often anymore. And two things that stood out to me that both of you mentioned was the emotional, mental aspect of it, and then also the nutrition. So when you said like diet, a lot of people get into this diet mentality, this diet mindset, and it's just a different buffering technique. It's like it's either compliance or defiance. And they're like, okay, I've been defiant. I've been displaying emotional eating, right? And then I'm going to go to the other end of this spectrum and I'm going to be totally compliant. And they're just fighting between this compliance and defiance. However, one of the things I love about the Habits of Health is Dr. A introduced this simple technique, stop, challenge, choose. It's really about emotional intelligence and processing what's happening in our lives. What I've discovered and what I've witnessed, and I'm still not perfect at this myself, I have my own moments, but anytime I go and try to do something else, even if it's compliant, right? Like the act of dieting. Whatever I'm trying to get away from, that emotional instability, the emotional insecurities or whatever, it's just going to wait for me to be finished doing whatever I'm doing. Sometimes it's eating, sometimes it's exercise. Everybody does different things, right? It just waits for us. And once we're done with it, that emotion is just waiting for us, whether it's sadness or grief or insecurity or depression or overwhelm or whatever. So we get to just
processing the emotions is such a huge part of what we do. That's one of the first
Yeah.
things actually that you taught me as my coach, Jared, was the processing of emotions and how that plays into everything that we do. And just the mindset that we have around health and nutrition and exercise.
It's almost
So
as if we don't have to process the emotion on a diet because it's a short-term duration and we know we're just getting from point A to point B. But if we're changing our identity, becoming a healthy person that has healthy coping skills, process the emotion to completion so that it's not waiting for us at the finish line of our health journey, standing there like the dragon. And we really get to process the emotion. And therefore food can just be what food is, just information. Food is just source code, right, for the body to write programs. And it's not necessarily something that has to be an emotional experience, but it will be if you're suppressing. And for many of us, food is the way we cope. We cope with it for a good time or a bad time, right? It's not just bad times that we cope through food. A celebration can involve overeating. So emotions and food, right? We can get to the bottom of that in this community, which
100%. So I'm not a programmer by any means, but I understand that there's ones and zeros, right? But in food, there's like zeros, ones, and twos.
Mhm.
Okay. There's fats, carbs, and protein.
Yeah.
So that's the source code that Rachel is just talking about. So let's talk nutrition for a minute. First of all, I always go back to what I learned very, very first thing when I came into the Optavia community. Dr. Anderson taught us about the University of Toronto study with David Jenkins, where they take two groups of people, traditional breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then broken down into 6 smaller carb, protein, balanced meals. They all ate the same foods, same calories. The people who ate 6 times a day, their blood glucose, their insulin levels, both significantly dropped. They lost more weight. They were more satiated. So that is it's the beauty, the elegance of the Optavia program, that we're giving people a simple, elegant solution so that they don't have to navigate all the macro balancing and things like this. Our scientifically formulated fuelings and now the Ascend line do that for us. What have you guys seen in your experience?
yeah.
Well, I'll say something just really quick because I want Rachel to really talk on nutrition. That's her specialty. But what I love about that study and the science behind it is it's like stoking the fire of our metabolism. It's like putting a log in every couple hours, put the log in, and we're not getting these big spikes in our blood sugar and our insulin level. We're keeping things really balanced. And it turns out the body loves that, and it fuels our energy. It keeps us energized throughout the day. It keeps our blood sugar balanced. It helps us burn fat and build muscle. So there's so much to that healthy pattern of eating. And I see more often than not, people not eating often enough, and the metabolism is going down, and we're starting to lose muscle, which then further brings the metabolism down. So I love that. And that's something that I implemented just when I found this program, was the 6 small meals. What I found in my life was that I wasn't eating enough. I was just eating a couple meals a day. Busy nurse practitioner, go, 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 quick lunch while I'm eating, probably skipped breakfast, I'm starving by the time I get home. And I felt so stressed at the end of my day. What I didn't realize was that stress was actually my body telling me I was hungry. I didn't even put that together. It's almost like when you have another biological need, when you have to go to the bathroom and everything is like very urgent because you got to go, everything is very urgent. It's similar when we're hungry. And sometimes we just don't recognize that cue from our body until we start doing it routinely. And then I started to see how balanced my energy was, and how even though I was doing the same work, I wasn't nearly as stressed at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the science of the fuelings is really brilliant because it's helping people to start with those habits of tracking that protein, fiber, and water without the labor of it. Fuelings make you thirsty, so you drink your water. There's so much I call it the Karate Kid, right? Program, because so much is happening that you think you're just wax on, wax off, eat the fueling, but there is a lot behind it. And when you really look at fiber, most of us were missing that by a mile prior to programs that we offer, right? So we know that fiber keeps that blood sugar balance in place. And you take fiber out of your diet and you're deregulated. And everything now, all the science, all the great minds that are behind, this health span initiative, not just lifespan, are really talking about blood sugar balance and making sure that, the other thing is these big, heavy meals. You skip all these meals, you come home, you eat something heavy. It completely taxes your digestive enzymes. You're producing just, a lot of load on the body. So therefore you're tired. Now you're going to skip the gym because you're too tired to go. So it's a cascade of things that happen when we get out of the routine of fueling our body, 6 times a day. And not to mention that when you see that fueling, whether it's an Ascend or whether it's any type of fueling that we offer, I just look at it like an opportunity to do some self-care. Get a glass of water, do some breath work, do some gratitude, eat your fuel, slow down. This is a chance to do a little self-care, and not skip that period of time where your body is asking for nutrition. By the time you're hungry or thirsty, your body has passed a need.
Hmm.
So we want to
So
prevent
good.
that. Yeah.
And Rachel, I want to pause there because there's a great question in the chat, and I know my answer, but I want to hear your answer to what about intermittent fasting?
Okay, well, in our books, it's wonderful. There's not a lot of studies quickly on human beings and intermittent fasting. There's an awful lot on animals, especially women. So women's studies, particularly on intermittent fasting, are very mixed. And so there's mixed results. Dr. A has thought of something that offers you fasting 5 to 6 times a day. You are fasting on our program in a much safer manner that has a lot more efficacy because you're going from a fed state, fueling, to a post-absorptive state, transporting nutrition, to a fasting state for about an hour-ish, depending. And you're doing that multiple times a day, not to mention the cutoff of bedtime, maybe last fueling at 8 p.m. and not eating again till 8 a.m., somewhere around there, 12 hours. So we're doing a good job at fasting. We're just not depleting the body of what it needs, in my opinion.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
There's a lot of clinical research behind what you just said. So
Yeah.
let's talk metabolism for a minute. Megan talked about food being this metabolic process, right? The thermic effect of food, like this is why it's so critical, like to Rachel's point, such an elegant fueling source with the Optavia fuelings, right? Because you don't have to count every calorie, you don't have to read every label, all this stuff. It's done for you. There's kind of spreads in the thermic effect of food, but fats have the lowest thermic effect. This means the percentage of the calories itself that are used to digest and absorb that nutrient. So fats are between about 3 and 5 or 6%. Carbohydrates are between about 6 and 15%. So your high fiber is going to have a higher thermic effect. Proteins, 25 to 35% of the calories are used during the digestion process. That's a huge thermic effect. So your high fiber carbohydrates, fruits and vegetables, and especially your low glycemic vegetables, and then your proteins are going to create this massive thermic effect. So your body's going to use a lot of energy just to utilize those nutrients. The other big one is obviously exercise, both non-exercise activity thermogenesis and exercise activity thermogenesis. So let's talk about, for our last few minutes, let's talk about exercise and specifically the critical nature of muscle.
Yeah, I would love to say this to kick us off.
Yeah.
I wasn't overweight. I was under muscled. And I really, what I wanted most, like structural tension, what I wanted most was to keep the weight off long term and have a really nice body composition as I aged. I wanted to age well. So therefore, focusing on number on a scale, being under muscled, always obsessing about that number on the scale, not really looking at how much muscle forward, you know, strategy could I implement. And this is where I love our active line. I love the Optavia just put it in there with the EAAs and the whey, and they really helped us to not ever worry about being under muscled and having a sarcopenic body that's not aging well. So for me, I'll kick off with that and you guys jump right in. Yeah, those are my 2 pennies.
Love
Megan.
that. I love that. And so I mentioned earlier, I am in cardiology. And so we know that, there's a couple different kinds of exercise. There's cardiovascular exercise, and then there's strength and resistance training. They both have excellent benefits. Cardiovascular exercise is when we're doing something that keeps the heart beating. We elevate our heart rate and we keep it there for a while. So good for cardiopulmonary health, the heart, the lungs. So good for overall physical fitness. But the strength and resistance training is so important for really building that muscle. And having a healthy amount of lean muscle mass is one of the most important factors in aging in general. It helps to increase our metabolism, keep our basal metabolic rate higher when we have a healthy amount of lean muscle. Having that muscle, it helps to regulate our blood glucose because muscle soaks up glucose from the bloodstream. So it helps to prevent insulin resistance. By the way, cardiovascular exercise too, you get 24 hours of benefit of improvement in insulin resistance with exercise, specifically cardiovascular. But again, this strength and resistance with building the lean muscle, so helpful with balancing blood sugar. We reduce the risk of injury, right? Keeping our body safe and healthy, reduce risk for falls, keep our joints well protected. Having extra body and doing strength and resistance helps with our bone density. So that's so important as we age. And really overall, having a healthy amount of muscle mass helps us with the thing that everybody wants, which is being able to maintain the results that we've worked so hard for. When you have that good amount of muscle mass, it doesn't get any easier to live in this crazy world that we live in, this obesogenic world, but it does help our body to get in this state where we are much more likely to be burning fat, and when we have a good amount of muscle mass. So the strength and resistance training, I think, is key for everybody, at least a few times a week. And to double down on what Rachel said with the active line, I use an in-body composition scale in one of my clinics, and it can be common to lose some muscle mass when you lose weight. That is just a factor of weight loss. But when I see muscle mass going down, I will add EAAs or whey protein, recommend that, and I will see the muscle mass improving by the very next month. So it's
So good.
exciting to be able.
So I'll finish up with this. Yeah, like Megan just said, if you're in a fat loss phase, you are going to lose a little bit of muscle. Imagine if I was benching 225 pounds and I was like, oh, you know what? I don't want to bench 225 pounds anymore. And I took 45s off each side and I was just benching 135. I would lose some muscle. If you go from 200 pounds to 150 pounds and you're only carrying around 150 pounds, you're going to lose a little bit of muscle because you're not carrying around as much weight anymore. That's not a bad thing. So, Dr. Peter Attia recently talked about a study with 20-year-olds, both men and women in their 20s, and then a group of seniors who were between 75 and 85 years old. They did a 6-week study with these two groups, and they started out with a leg extension 3-rep max. And then each of them worked with a trainer for 6 weeks on a protocol. And then at the end of 6 weeks, they measured their improvement. The 20-something-year-olds, it doesn't matter where you're starting. It matters what you're capable of improving, right? So the 20-year-olds, they increased their 3-rep max by 83%. You're like, oh man, well, I'm older. I can't do that. Both Rachel and I are 51 years old. Megan is 44 years old. Okay, we're in the age group where it's harder to put on muscle, or so we say. So society tells us. Well, the 75 to 85-year-olds, they're working with trainers, same protocol, and at the end of 6 weeks, they increased their strength by 78%. Only a 5% difference. It's not what we tell ourselves that we're not capable because society has fed us this. We are capable if we're willing to just do the daily 3 reps, so to speak.
Right.
So good.
We knew that this would happen because we could sit and talk about this all night
Yeah.
long, but
Yeah.
we have to wrap it up, folks.
Yep. So
this was
thank
so
you
fun
so
talking
much for
to you guys.
being with us tonight. We're going to kick it back to Mike to finish us off.
Well, that was so great, everybody. I know that everybody loved that. Just blow up the chat with thanks, because that was just powerful information. And I know that nobody's upset that we went a few minutes over. But if you are joining us in the Brain and Body Reset Challenge, the word is fuel, right? FUEL, fuel. So those of you listening to the podcast, there it is. You have it. And next week, we're excited for you to join us for another episode of Let's Talk for summer fun prep, right? We have Memorial Day coming up next, and then it'll just be summer fun. And summer doesn't mean, I always see these people, sometimes they come out of summer with a little more than a tan and good memories. You know what I'm saying? And so we don't want that to be you. We want you to come out of summer feeling fit and strong with a great tan and those great memories. So don't forget about the podcast. We have the podcast. You can join in on that. You can listen to this on your ride to work or wherever you're headed. And then join us next Monday night for another episode of Let's Talk Your Summer Fun Prep. So great seeing everyone. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jared, Rachel, and Megan. What an amazing night. We'll see you next week, everyone. Take care.